Hello everyone, this is part 24 of What If Naruto Was a One-of-a-Kind Genius, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Naruto was walking along the village streets with Mikoto beside him. The woman had insisted on walking along with him. Just because they were doing some private things that they didn't want other people to know didn't mean they couldn't do things as they used to. If they did that, it would just raise suspicions, Mikoto had reasoned. With his record, Naruto thought some people would find the very idea of him sleeping with Mikoto to be ridiculous, just unbelievable. He showed no interest in women, so really something like that would be the last thing people would think of him. His reasons had not mattered nevertheless. The Uchiha beside him had stood firm in what she was saying. Soon wants either of you to work in Anbu. Mikoto suddenly said. She spoke to me in your absence. I sense the reason is that she wants to break you two apart. She is suspicious of your relationship and assumes you're plotting something. With the way she was speaking, it appeared as if she had gotten her hands on a detailed report about you. Well, something like that would set off alarms in anyone's head, Naruto said. But the only person who knew me in detail was the Sandaime Hokage. I wouldn't put it past the old man to have gathered intelligence about me. Still, allowing something like that to exist was just dangerous. The Sandaime would have been frank in his assessment on just what he was capable of doing, and he was certain that people like Shikaku wouldn't say anything that would make him appear bad. He had an understanding with the man. However, if Tsunade knows what the Sandaime Hokage feared about him, then it would change the game. Just when he thought that things would be okay within the leaf, this has to happen. He would have to thank Mikoto for telling him this. He trusted her instinct. She was a former Jonin and he doubted her prowess as a kunoichi have dulled due to the years of playing the role of a humble wife to Fugaku. You should be worried if she has something like that, Mikoto said in a firm tone. I'm very much concerned about how something like that would impact Sasuke. I know anything with regards to Sasuke would not last if it is a case of abandoning the leaf. His everything is here. It is a different story with you. Tell me, how far did you play your games with the Sandaime? We didn't hold back, Naruto responded in a flat tone. He still didn't like the fact that he was never able to land a blow on the old man. He was always on the losing side of the games and it had been a source of frustrations, but it did motivate him as well. The old man knew what I could do, he knew how I would react to different situations, you could say he could read my reactions. I think that was due to the fact that my thinking was narrow. You were only focused on your mother and the Sandaime knew that all too well, Mikoto shook her head. Well, he was the professor. A man of many tricks and talents. Well, since he favored Orochimaru out of his students, you can see where the snake gets some of his instincts, Naruto said with a shake of his head. What did you say about her thoughts? The blonde asked, going back to the matter the woman had brought up. I didn't give her my answer or my thoughts regarding the matter. Mikoto said, she is the Sandaime Hokage, and Sasuke is her subordinate. I have no say in how she uses him. Naruto was amused by that response from Mikoto. She might have said that and that was the reality, but those were just words. Perhaps she was telling the woman to do what she thought was right as the Sandaime Hokage. I doubt she had called you to talk about that, the blonde said, his right eye narrowed toward Mikoto for a second. We had other business we were trying to solve, Mikoto responded. She didn't go into detail about it and Naruto didn't ask. If he were to be honest, it bothered him slightly that she chose to keep what they were discussing. Anbu isn't so bad, Naruto said. I wouldn't go back though. The work is too much due to the low numbers and I dislike the rule that operates there. Well, it wouldn't be so bad giving Tsunade the perception that one is an obedient shinobi. For me it would be a rather difficult sale to market. My love for Konoha is rather notorious. Mikoto laughed. You have yourself to blame for that. You were just too open in your love for Konoha. You didn't make it a secret that your mother came first in everything. Of course that record isn't going to leave you and convincing him otherwise will be close to impossible for you at this point. Naive mistakes of a child, Naruto said in a flat tone. Well, I have learned and I don't necessarily need them to trust me. If they trust Sasuke, I have no complaints. We just need to have a frank relationship and things can work well. We should be able to find the middle ground and balance things out in ways that we don't displease each other. Is that how you dealt with the Sandaime? Mikoto asked with a smile. Naruto nodded. We were honest like that. It helped get things out of the way like suspicions. He didn't have to worry about my agenda because he knew and I didn't have to worry about what the senile old man was plotting behind the grandfatherly tone, smile and innocent eyes. Just the manipulation games, huh? Mikoto fell silent for about a minute. What kind of games are you playing with Sasuke? You might have slightly changed, but you are still Naruto. You play the high-stakes games. I don't want my son to be caught up in things that don't do him any good. If you can't be honest with him, at least tell me as his mother. Naruto looked up into the clear sky for a moment before responding. You know my thoughts for Sasuke even if I don't have to tell you. Mikoto smiled. What makes you think I know, dear? Because you're not stupid, Naruto said. Those eyes of yours, I have seen them. You managed to get me to sleep with you, and have gotten me to open up a little with you. Those blind red eyes you don't like showing to the world are not blind. How do you know I have my Sharingan activated? I can feel it, Naruto said calmly. You have not objected to anything though. Well, it does more good to the Uchiha than to me. I think Fugaku would rejoice in his death when it does become a reality. All of them should, Mikoto said. Do you think you can make it happen? Naruto nodded. I have yet to pull any strings in the political world, but I will soon. I still have a showdown with Hiashi with regards to his daughter. I will have my way when that does happen. If he was a simple man, I wouldn't mind pulling the strings, but I know those influencing him. He would act on them soon. He could not allow them to dictate things. They were just trying to live their past glories, but such dreams had to be K. If he simply allowed them to try to paddle with his plans, they might prove to be an obstacle in the near future. It was best that he extinguishes the fire before it burns too brightly. Perhaps he should have allowed the root shinobi to K them, or maybe Sasuke when he was still pissed off over the fact that they had a hand in Itachi's mission. What are you planning to do with Hiashi, Naruto? Mikoto asked in a curious tone. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. I have no plans with him. I just need to clear the air with him. You should know that he doesn't like me. He's your fellow clan head after all, the blonde said. We don't get along either, Mikoto said. You know the rivalry between the Hyuga and the Uchiha. Besides, the man has too much pride that it bothers me. He was a fair person though. Perhaps something happened. Naruto shook his head. People just lose their heads along the way. You need to be strong in this world to maintain your true self. There are many things that try to dilute us, so many that try to change us, but those strong enough to withstand the storm remain true to themselves. Mikoto smiled. Wise words from a mother's white knight, the woman said. That reminds me of Ino. Naruto said with a small smile. Maybe he should visit her soon. Back in the days when we were still close, she used to call me her Black Knight. I assume because of my personality. The blonde Uzumaki shook his head. I'm surprised that you're asking though. Once again, he went back to the matter that started the conversation. Would you rather I act blind to everything? Mikoto asked with a raised brow. I think that would be too dull for you. Besides, I've played the role of the yes woman for far too long. I'm tired of it. It can't do me any good anyway. I would imagine so, Naruto said with a nod. You're a clan head. If you cannot stand up for yourself and your clan, you won't amount to much and everyone will play ball with the Uchiha. You seem to be doing a rather good job so far though. The council not giving you much troubles. They try, but you must be willing to stand your ground. Mikoto said. That is something that your mother knows best to do. It is a little different when it comes to you though. Both you and I know that she is very much aware that she is the center of your life and she can control you, but she doesn't because she loves her son dearly. She wants you to live your life the way you want. I wish the same for Sasuke, thus I cannot make decisions for him, but that doesn't mean that I stop looking out for him. Before anything, I am a mother to Sasuke and everything else follows. Naruto was silent for a few moments. He was always first to his mother. He could not be surprised that Mikoto had the same feeling. Well, maybe some mothers were not so different in their love for their children. Speaking of my mother, when was the last time you got together with her? Mikoto blinked once before responding. It is difficult facing her when I know that I'm sleeping with her dear son. She would really be pissed off if she found out that I took your innocence away. Maybe I'm drifting away because I think that day will come. It doesn't bother me, Naruto said. That is because you're Naruto, Mikoto said in a firm tone. You deal with emotions differently, and the emotions that bother us don't make sense to you, nor do you even give yourself time to stress about them. You don't worry about friendship because that is something that means little to you. We normal people value things like that, because we believe they are important in life. I'm getting too many accusations about that part, Naruto said. Yuga was saying that I don't make friends, but I gather pieces for my purposes, and Sasuke said something as well. I don't find any problems with that, but wouldn't you say we have become friends, maybe more than that? The Uchiha smiled. Yes, and I have managed to get you to admit that I am an important person to you. Previously, you would have never have admitted that. Well, that would be because no one was important to you then aside from your mother. I think I should give myself a pat on the back for finding a seat in the ride of Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto didn't know whether to be displeased or happy that he was learning more about emotions. For someone to influence him like that was unthinkable, yet this was the reality. No one came into his life without his approval, yet he did not seem to have a choice with Mikoto. If he was paranoid, he would be thinking that the woman told him that he was her hero because she was plotting something. His young heart had been warmed by those words she had said to him. They had made him happy, and appreciate the woman, and he had put value above her head because of it. That had been childish. Mikoto was the first person who gave him a candy, and he accepted it with both hands before growing attached to her. Thinking about it, maybe he did want to be appreciated back then. His father had turned him into a sacrifice, Konoha hated him, despised his very existence, and yet for something he did for his own selfish reasons, Mikoto had given him a smile. To think even he could be so simple. Yamanaka Flower Shop. It has been some time since he last stepped into the shop. Naruto stopped at the entrance and closed his eyes, just to breathe in the natural atmosphere that was compelled by the flowers that surrounded the shop. The different kinds of scents, but the mixture wasn't bad, it was refreshing and brought about a sense of peace with how natural it felt. Nature was a beautiful thing. It was the only thing in this world that he could like. It didn't have the stench of corrupted humans. The delightful thing about it was that it was also dangerous. If humans continue to mess with it, it would strike back and hard. When nature was furious, there was no one who could stop it, no one who could stand in the way. Perhaps this was the reason extremely powerful shinobi have been called forces of nature. Someone's looks like they are in peace, Ino said in a calm tone, standing just in front of Naruto with a small smile on her face and both hands on her hips. Naruto blinked and looked down at the blonde Yamanaka. She was staring at him as if she had caught him doing something uncharacteristic of him. Well, since when did he become so sentimental? Was he the cold person who showed little to no emotion to the things around him? Well, things were different when it came to things he was familiar with. How many times had he been forced to smile when he was in this place? Maybe it was all right to express some emotions when he was here. He did have fond memories of the place after all. Naruto trailed off as he caught himself from finishing what he wanted to say. Was he seriously going to say that it was nice to see you again, Ino? And with a smile. What was wrong with him? Somehow it felt wrong to do something like that. There was something screaming that it wasn't Uzumaki Naruto. But things with Ino have always been different. She had always held some place in his black selfish heart. He wouldn't exaggerate it enough to say a special place, but she was there, has always been. Maybe it was Mikoto's influence that was making him act out. The woman had a certain way with things, and really, she wasn't as submissive as she would like one to believe. Were all women like that though? Maybe not. You look well, Ino. Naruto finally said with an expressionless look on his face, but his tone wasn't as flat as he would like. Ino raised an eyebrow. Did you just stutter? The blonde asked, taking a step closer to her fellow blonde. Her face was just inches away from Naruto's, she could feel his calm breath, but that didn't make her fluster a little, even though his eyes were staring deep into hers as if they wanted to pierce through and read her thoughts. You must be dreaming, Naruto was quick to say. Oh, Ino stepped back slightly. She examined the blonde from head to toe, looked into his eyes for a long minute as if he was a curious piece that she wanted to decipher. You've been different, you're not like those days, not like when you came back, something is happening. She could tell. She has known him since they were little kids. She knew his expressions, she knew even though he didn't do too much of it these days, he was still a mother's boy as she was daddy's little angel. It would be unthinkable to say that Naruto was in love. She would need a certain amount of time to try to process that just so it could sink in, and that wasn't to say that she would understand it then. No, the process would be that just so she could confirm it without a shed of doubt that she had heard or realized correctly. Even despite those thoughts, Ino smiled, a bit slyly. Is there someone in your life? Stiff people can only be changed when there is a special someone in their hearts, the Yamanaka said in a suggestive tone. Naruto knew what she was suggesting. Maybe before Mikoto forced him to experience the beauty of being human and understanding things, he would not have understood it. Even so, the blonde responded as if he was as dense as one could be. What do you mean by that? I do have my mother, she is that someone special in my heart, the blonde said in a firm tone, and an expressionless mask. Ino blinked as if she had been caught off guard by that response. Maybe if she wasn't supporting herself well, she may have even fell on her butt. You said that on purpose, she accused the blonde with a look on her face before shaking her head. You know, if you continue saying things like that, one will assume you have an unnatural relationship with your mother. She has been single since her husband D, and doesn't appear to be looking for anyone. She was still a beautiful woman, and as her mother has said, she was a lot calmer compared to the days of the old. Perhaps it came with the responsibility of being a mother, not just any mother but the mother of Uzumaki Naruto. That has got to be the most difficult job in the whole of Konoha. For a second, a look of disgust flashed across Naruto's eyes. It was in an instant, but Ino's perceptive gaze saw it all. Don't suggest something like that. Wasn't it somehow hypocritical that he would dislike the thought when he was doing the deeds with Sasuke's mother? And if Sasuke thought of revenge on him with his mother, he would end him in broad daylight, in the streets of Konoha when everyone was watching, and he would not give a about what anyone would say. Uzumaki Kushina was a precious jewel that would not be violated by anyone. Well, it is good that you have morals, Ino said. She then sighed, taking a slightly serious look on her face. Not that I'm not happy to see you, but for what reason did you come here, Naruto? Your mother isn't here, in case you came for her. She looked at him expectantly. I was bored and thought I'd visit you, the blonde Uzumaki said honestly. If you're not too busy, you can walk me to the training grounds. I wish to see how far you have improved in your training. I've never honored your request to make you better. Ino stared for a long minute. I feel insulted that the only reason you only thought of that was because you were bored. She said in a flat tone before once more again, sighing. Oh well, this is you. She paused and turned around, showing the Uzumaki her back. Mom, I'm going out with Naruto. Ino shouted rather loudly. She didn't wait for her mother to respond, she turned to face Naruto and spoke. Come on, let us go, she said holding out her right hand. We are going to take a walk, Naruto said as he turned around to face the exit. You will tell me what you have learned so far, and then when we get to the training ground, you will charge at me. Can't you be a normal boy for a moment? Ino asked a bit hopelessly. It is just the two of us, you can talk about anything, and all you want to hear about is my training. Naruto glanced towards the blonde on his left hand for a moment before he offered a response. What do you want me to say, Ino? She shrugged. I don't know. Flirt. Talk about naughty things, love. You have to admit that there are things I won't talk about, Naruto pointed out. Training Ground 7. This training ground held a lot of memories. He had overseen Team 7, he trained both Sasuke and Hinata. The latter had received the most attention when in the training ground, but that was because she needed it the most. He had groomed her rather well. He needed to see her fight at her level best to say he had done a good job once again. The Uzumaki looked at Ino before asking, how strong has Hinata become? I know she has grown, but I'm curious to know how far. Really? Ino stared. I thought you wanted to see my efforts and now you're asking me about your favorite Hinata. Naruto raised an eyebrow. The question was just something that popped, and since Ino was a person of gossip, or to color it, you could say intelligence, he thought she would have a good idea on how to go about it. The blonde shook his head. Never mind. Nevertheless, seeing how far you have come, I just realized something that will suit you best. What? I have always valued how keen and perceptive you are. Maybe you get that from your father, but getting things is a skill you possess naturally, I mean with regards to information. If you allow me, I can make you the best kunoiki when it comes gathering intel. Either being a spy or working at the torture and interrogation division, I can help you become the best there is. The blonde paused as he walked closer to the Yamanaka. He stopped just inches away from her, staring deep into her eyes. I don't think I've ever said this, but you truly are beautiful, and I think out of our age group, you're the one who has developed in all areas. Then, if you think so, why don't you make a move? Ino dared him. You're a good friend of mine, I wouldn't want you to get hurt because I will always be Naruto no matter what. Today, I can for you, and tomorrow, I'll be looking at something else different. So, do you think I'd be hurt by that? Do you think I expect to get married to you and have a bunch of kids? I know you, Naruto. I have known you since we were little kids. I treasure those moments I had to use blackmail just to get you to help from bullies, Ino said in a quiet, yet emotional tone. She was doing all she could so that she couldn't lose her cool. You steer a conversation like that. To be the best when it comes to gathering information, you must be able to steer the conversation. Being able to steer a conversation helps you evade difficult questions or lead others into difficult questions. You speak what you want to speak, and answer what you want to answer. Ino stopped herself from the blonde. She glared for a moment before responding. Like how you just shifted back as if I wasn't serious. Naruto shook his head. Not like that, he said. You see, my response left you bitter. If I wanted information from you, I would no longer get it because you're not happy. But that depends on people. Some people become loose when they are in a foul mood. And what of me? It is hard to tell, but I know you'd never hate me. I don't really understand it clearly, but it appears you were pouring your feelings and I just shrugged it off and said something else as if I didn't hear it. Worse, I led you to that subject, Naruto said, his tone blank of any emotion. What makes it worse is that you did it even though you're aware of it. Nothing hurts more than an intentional pain caused by someone you consider a friend. Ino said. Naruto was silent for a few moments, wondering how the conversation got like this. This wasn't something that he wanted to discuss with Ino, and he had done well in the past weeks to avoid it. He was put in a position where he could not avoid it forever. Maybe he should have just stayed away altogether. The blonde sighed. In this situation, I'm left without anything to say. It just reminds me of that night we had a reunion with the others. I've kept you away because I value you as a friend. You were my first friend, and I really don't want anything to happen to that. I have few connections in this world, and truly, they are what makes me feel alive. I feel like this is the first time you've ever opened up to me. Ino said with a small smile. Maybe, Naruto said. As I was saying, his tone started a bit high, just to force the issue a bit. What do you say to my proposal? I did agree to training you, and this is the only way I think I can make you great. You must have realized already that you're not suited for the heavy hitting. Ino looked up for a moment before responding. Well, I had considered following my father's footsteps. My family techniques make it easy for me for interrogation. True. Naruto started in a thoughtful tone. Jiraiya is Konoha's main source of intel. That division your father works in also deals with intelligence, but they are not heavily equipped to collect intelligence from the outside. Anbu has its own division as well, but as far as I know, there is no division made specifically for gathering intel. What if I managed to convince Tsunade to create one? Would you be interested in heading it? Ino blinked. She was honestly surprised that he would suggest something like that. What did he think of her? She didn't know anything about gathering intel, and she wasn't a spy. She knew how to get information out of people, but spying was a different matter. You're not saying no, Naruto said. That is fine. Prepare yourself because we are in for a ride and a dangerous journey. He suddenly grabbed the Yamanaka by her throat and lifted her up. He wasn't gentle in any way. Ino was struggling to breathe. You must be fast, learn to be invisible, and your instincts must be sharp. You cannot allow yourself to get caught by something like this or else you will lose your life. It takes one crucial slip for your life to vanish. The blonde Uzumaki allowed Ino to slip through. The girl fell to the ground on her knees, both hands around her throat. She took in some oxygen for a couple of seconds before looking up at Naruto with a slight glare. I don't think you were this rough with Hinata. You're not Hinata, Naruto said, turning away from Ino. He waved his right hand, calling for the Yamanaka to follow him as he took the direction of the forest. We are going to start with your reflexes. Later. Hokage office. Do you mind explaining what you were doing in sound days ago? Tsunade asked in a hardened tone, her eyes never straying away from the blonde sitting in front of her desk. She had called him as soon as she learned this from Jiraiya, and he hadn't been resistant in coming to see her. Well, he has been rather cooperative regardless of what she has learned about him in the past days. As the Sandaim's Cage Only report does say, Konoha is Naruto's #1 when it comes to safety and he won't do anything to sabotage that, unless Konoha wrongs him. His mother specifically. Tsunade wasn't complaining about how the blonde was willing to sit down and talk to her like an adult. She preferred it this way. They would not go anywhere if they played the cat and mouse game, and it wouldn't do any good to Naruto or her. If used and treated wisely, the blonde could become a great asset for Konoha, there was no doubt about that. The only problem she was failing to solve was the issue of trust. There were many things going on with Naruto, and with what she has learned, she had all the good reasons to be worried. Anyone would be worried. She wasn't like her former sensei. The man was a genius when it came to playing games, she was just blunt and didn't like going around the bushes. Naruto didn't show an outward reaction to the question by the Godime Hokage. He wasn't expecting her to question him about it before he could speak to Jiraiya. Well, there was no major problem, he could still work around things without any trouble. No, I don't mind. Naruto responded calmly. Tsunade stared for a long minute waiting for the blonde to start talking, but he just stared at her and said nothing. She realized he was waiting for her to say something, he was waiting for her to spell it out, even though he knew she wanted him to tell the reasons. What he had done was simply answer her question. There was no obligation to go further than that, especially when he had given her a positive response. Tell then. Tsunade demanded with impatience. The impatience in Tsunade's tone was an all-familiar story. The woman was the impatient type, and that wasn't a good thing at all. She had to learn to be tolerant or else there would be trouble with her leadership. Well, he wasn't the one who was to lecture the woman, she was an experienced Sannin, he liked to believe that it counted for something, if not, it would be a massive disappointment. She had Jiraiya, the man had plenty of life lessons. Naruto decided not to answer the Hokage. He could do that later, he wasn't in a hurry to go anywhere, and he could handle the woman's snappy temper. He was controlled, but he had his temper as well. No one has seen him lose it though. What do you know about me, Godime? Naruto asked in a curious tone, his eyes staring deep into the woman's eyes, waiting to analyze whatever response she would give and every twitch in her body as she does respond. Tsunade felt those eyes watching her. She felt as if he was trying to peek into her mind. He wasn't hiding the fact that he was analyzing every inch of her face and was ready to dissect the response she would give him. It was an unnerving feeling that made her uncomfortable for a moment before she decided to just shrug it off. What would it matter? I know that you're a manipulating person, who's always plotting something, strong and have no love for Konoha. Tsunade said without a shed of doubt in her tone. She figured that what she had said summed it all up, but there was one more she could add. Of course, the part of him not being loyal to Konoha was a concern, not just because he was a Jinchuriki, but because he was a shinobi of the Hidden Leaf. All shinobi of the leaf were supposed to be loyal to the village. It was especially a problem with Naruto's case because he wasn't normal by any means. The Godime blinked. Had she just drifted off from the subject that had caused her to summon her fellow blonde? Tsunade shook her head. She hated to admit it, but they were talking about what Naruto wanted to talk about, not what she wanted. He hadn't answered her question. She frowned. She hated people like Naruto. At least she had managed to catch him before he could steer too far away. She would play along and pretend as if she had forgotten about it, and should he try to leave without answering her, he would have her stern gaze waiting for him at the end of the tunnel. I wouldn't exactly say it like that, but I'm a meticulous planner. I think through things and try to move accordingly to get the results I need. What I have realized in this life is that if you simply sit back, the environment around you will dictate how you live your life. I will not deny or confirm that I have no love for Konoha, but what I will confirm is that as long as my relationship with this village's leaders remains amiable, I will be a Konoha shinobi. For my own safety and my mother's happiness, it is necessary that I stay here. Not only that, but we're thinking of restoring the clan. To do that, we need a secure environment, and regardless of what anyone says, Konoha is the strongest. However, it doesn't mean that it is immune to attacks. As a meticulous planner, I try to manage what would attack Konoha and stop it if possible. I must know what threatens Konoha, and when knowing, I must deal with those threats, because if Konoha is threatened, my peace is threatened. The blonde paused as he tilted his head to the side. Do you understand what I am trying to say? He asked in a deliberately slow tone. Tsunade glared. Don't mock me, she barked. But I do understand what you're saying and what you have not said. In other words, he was saying that if there were threats to Konoha, he would try to deal with it, and with how he was speaking, on his own. Konoha was his security. He didn't stay here because he loved the village, he was here because it was secure, but the moment it stopped being secure, he wouldn't hesitate to disappear. At least he was taking steps to ensure that the village was secure. Still, what worried the Godime Hokage was the fact that she didn't know what steps he was taking, and what he was moving to ensure that he gets the results he needs. She doubted he would willingly divulge something like that. I'm glad you do, Naruto said. I thought it would be a lot easier for you to grasp my response to your question if you understood the story behind it. I'm afraid it might have been a little unbelievable coming from me because of your mistrust. Tsunade felt something twist inside of her. It was just the way he said that last word. There was no accusation, but just a statement of a fact. Naruto knew that she didn't trust him despite what she said before, and he was under no obligation to trust her if she could not trust him. I went to the sound because I'd been informed that Orochimaru was seen. My investigation and hunt for Uzumakis that could still be alive led me to your former teammate. I have learned that he has an Uzumaki living with him. That was my reason for going to the sound. Naruto said. Upon my visit, he did reveal that he had her, but was not going to give her up. I imagine that now I must actively start destroying his hideouts one by one until I find what I want. He didn't say anything about Sasuke, and Tsunade knew that he had crossed the borders alone, not with the Uchiha. That would be dangerous, Tsunade said. But you don't really fear Orochimaru, do you? Naruto didn't respond. You don't like him, do you? She asked another question. No. I find his existence intolerable and offensive. Naruto responded calmly, with no amount of emotion in his tone. I'm sure it may have crossed your mind, but not everyone en route was K when Danzo met death. I have someone named Sai. For over the past 2 years, he has been gathering information for me, about Orochimaru, threats to Konoha, and to me. What is most concerning is the threat posed by the Akatsuki. This doesn't have much to do with Konoha, but to my person. This is the reason I have preferred to handle things on my own. Why are you telling me now? Because I prefer if you didn't second guess me. You will lose it trying to figure out where I have gone and what I am doing. This makes things easier for you. Naruto stated. The Akatsuki was a serious problem. True, they were after what he held, but it would be stupid to say that it didn't concern Konoha. They still had no idea why the organization was even attempting to do with the Bayou. There was the acceptance that it wasn't anything good, and Konoha would try to do anything possible to ensure that the organization does not succeed in its attempts to get the Bayou. Tsunade leaned back to her chair. She was feeling light, as if a heavy weight has been lifted off her shoulders. Perhaps it was because she was having a conversation with Naruto she thought she would never have. He was telling his intentions, and at least she was now able to get a picture of where his thinking went. What have you found about the Akatsuki? I would rather Sai tell you himself. Naruto responded calmly. It is nothing concrete, but it is something that I doubt Jiraiya even knows. The blonde paused before shifting the subject. I'm telling you this. I'm planning on creating an intel agency for the collection of intel and for counterintelligence as well. I'd rather you not think I'm plotting something sinister. The reasons for this should be clear. Tsunade narrowed her eyes. If it is in the village, you can't tell me, because you have no authority to do something like that. I could get you charged for doing something like that behind my back. Naruto waved his right hand. I'd be out of the village before you can even say, the blonde said with shrug of his shoulders. For Konoha to be secure, for it to be proactive, it needs be active when it comes to intelligence. You cannot always rely on Jiraiya. Your generation will expire and the new generation will be left clueless. To avoid such a disaster, I want to train people who will take over. Tsunade stared. This was going to happen, but she figured there was a reason Naruto was telling her. He could have done this behind her back. Why are you telling me? Because I don't want trouble with you and I have already selected 2 candidates for the agency. Naruto said with a sigh. Of course, as the Hokage, nothing will be hidden from you. There still needs to be training and once the Uchiha get over their troubles, military police will be up and running. That means in terms of internal security, the village will function while being aware of what it is happening outside its borders. I will think about, Tsunade said. There might be no need for the council to know should I agree to it. There are things that they don't need to know. Excellent, Naruto said with a smile. You will meet Sai soon and he will give you a full detailed report of what he has discovered about the Akatsuki so far. I hope then, we will be able to form a good working relationship. The blonde Uzumaki stood up before disappearing into thin air. Well, that was rather interesting. Jiraiya suddenly said as he appeared by the window. I have always suspected that everyone wasn't K. For someone like Naruto, he would have realized that it would be waste to do something like that when he could use them for his own purposes. It was indeed interesting. Tsunade said. I'll have to speak to Kushina again about her son. Jiraiya looked at the woman for a moment before looking outside the village. She had said, Argaran she has spoken to Kushina before. What do you wish to talk about with her, if it regards to Naruto? You must also have to be careful with what you ask and you suggest because Kushina is very protective of her son. If Naruto was willing to do anything to make Kushina safe, then she was willing to do just as much, albeit recklessly, but she would stand by her decision. They used to have a saying, it was them against the world, then against Konoha and everyone else who went against them. Kushina might be willing to play the humble mother when things were good, but if anyone pressured her son, they would see the bad side of her. He knew of many accounts from his sensei that Naruto had to hold his mother back from ripping apart some villagers who had insulted him in front of her. Things might have slightly changed, but if she was willing to go that far then, what about now? Not to mention that she had refused anyone to get close to Naruto, even when the pressure had come from Danzo and his delightful partners in crime. I know that, Tsunade said. She made it abundantly clear in our talk last time out, though she was rather calm about it. I did sense that if I crossed a line, she wouldn't be happy with me. This was a serious matter that needed a clear head. At least now we know what we are dealing with. Jiraiya nodded. But Naruto has always admitted that he was simple if you take all things into all accounts. You just have to know what he values the most and that makes him a little predictable. I can see that now and I understand why Sensei never really did worry despite actually getting people to spy on him. The problem is what he doesn't say and all the scheming. Yes, but when you look at it, Naruto won't do anything that would endanger his mother, he won't do anything ridiculous as plotting to control, as he knows that his mother would never be happy living under those conditions. What matters the most to him is his mother's happiness. Although this thing he wants to create isn't specifically done for Konoha's sake, it does benefit Konoha. You can be sure that if he learns of a threat to harm Konoha putting his mother in danger, Naruto will do something about it. There will be plotting, but he will not do anything that will endanger Konoha. I won't rule out that if he does see that it is a battle that cannot be won, he would rather abandon the village than fight with the enemy. That is something that Sensei understood all too well, the Sannin said before adding. I think he did the plotting to the excessive because he might have enjoyed it, there was no harm being done. This does nothing but increase my paperwork. Tsunade said with a groan as she could literally see a mountain of paperwork on her table. But if we are doing this, you have to be involved in every way. I know there are some things I will not be told, but you have the skills, and if Naruto wants to create a spy agency, you will have oversight over it and certain Anbu will be allowed to see his reports whenever I give the order. It would make hiding something extremely difficult and would ensure that the agency does work for the benefit of Konoha. Should she find that the intelligence they work on is useless, she would have it disbanded. Tsunade nodded to herself. Under this condition, she would create this agency. No. Naruto would create it. Officially, it would not exist, and a couple of Anbu who are privy to some secrets will know about it. I'd think Naruto would expect you to have conditions like that, Jiraiya said. But if he did think about it, he would have realized that hiding things would be extremely difficult and chose to do it in secret if this wasn't thought for the benefit of Konoha. They were still dealing with the kind of person who played pool with the Sandaime Hokage. Jiraiya didn't think lightly of that. There was still much more that Naruto could do that they didn't even know. Naruto's house. Later that day. If it was during day and Naruto wasn't with his mother, then he was in the study looking at papers. This was something that Yugao has noticed of the blonde when present in the house. There was never a day that he did not make a visit in the study, and even till this day, she doesn't really know what sort of matters he handled. She doubted even his mother knew. Naruto didn't always tell his mother everything. He kept some things to himself. His mother was not told things that he believed would displease her. Of course, Kushina knew her son was always working up things, but she didn't appear to lose sleep over it. Yugao would not even be exaggerating if she said the woman was nonchalant about. The former Anbu shook off her thoughts before sitting down on the chair in front of the table. Naruto was still pretending to be ignorant of her presence, as always when she appears and keeps silence. What are you working on? Things, Naruto said in a quiet tone. You have never been interested in learning my business. What makes you curious? Is it because the Hokage is asking questions? Yugao blinked. She had spoken to Tsunade, but that isn't something she has told anyone, not even Kushina, even though the woman has said that the Godime was asking questions about Naruto. How do you know that Tsunade is asking me questions? Naruto's eyes glanced at the purple-haired former Anbu for a second before he went back to the paper in front of him. I never said that. Once more again, Yugao blinked, a little surprised, but she knew what he meant. I said Tsunade was asking questions. There isn't anything in my question that suggested that I was referring to you. Yugao glared at the blonde for tricking her. Sometimes she forgot that she was living with a master manipulator. Perhaps it was because he hasn't been using his tongue to fool her that she has always left herself open. Any normal person would think you're talking about them, the woman reasoned, even though she wasn't asked for reasons. There wasn't anything in Naruto's tone that suggested that he was accusing her of anything, yet she felt she had to give a reason for her response. A normal person wouldn't think much of my question, because if Tsunade is indeed asking questions about me, even though not directly to you, you'd be curious to know, especially in your case, Naruto said. Your response came because she had asked you. You might have chosen to be on the defensive, that would have just raised questions and unnecessary answers. Nevertheless, I was actually trying to see if Tsunade did speak to you. Yugao stared at the blonde for a long minute, trying to figure out why he couldn't have just asked her. She would have told him that the woman did speak to her, and she had no doubt that Naruto was aware of that. Yet, he had to go around her to get the answer. She shook her head. Maybe it was fun for him if he does it that way. You still didn't answer my question, Yugao said, shifting away from the matter at hand. I did, you just don't like the answer, Naruto said with glance at Yugao. I made a proposal to Tsunade. I have to work out Tsunade's abilities as well as my approach to other nations. There are intelligence reports that I must study and issue instructions. I must see out finances for us. You're not working, and I haven't done a mission since my return. What do you think is paying for everything? Yugao had never thought of it. She was basically a freeloader in the house, but Kushina has not said anything about it. She knew the redhead Uzumaki didn't do anything to earn money as well. She has always assumed that all was well when it came to finances. Kushina has not said nothing about it, and Naruto hadn't said they were struggling financially as well. Do you want me to return to my previous work? Naruto shook his head. No, you already have work, the blonde said a bit firmly. She wasn't going to leave his mother's side, he would not permit that. There are no problems, I just need to manage things properly so that there are no problems, the blonde paused before asking. What brought you here? There has always been a reason she came to his office. She never just came to say, hello, there was always something. I heard Anko say that you were training your childhood friend today. Yugao said. I'm interested in knowing for what reason. If I didn't know any better, I'd say that you're either obsessed with who I contact or you don't like the idea of me befriending other women. Naruto said, his eyes firmly on the papers on the desk. Why would I have a problem? Who knows? Naruto said nonchalantly. You just ask a lot when I meet other people. It raises questions, but I'm not too interested in knowing. To answer your question, I have a specific reason, and I think I like her company. Well, I have never hated it. Finally taking interest in girls your age. Yugao asked with a smile. I'm not sure Mikoto will approve of you replacing her with a younger and much more active girl. Who said Mikoto wasn't active? Naruto asked calmly, his eyes on Yugao as he watched her facial expressions. The woman didn't offer an immediate response. She first allowed her thoughts to run the course before responding. I want to say that I didn't hear that, but I think I have to say this. You're only saying that because you have never been with someone your age. From what I have learned so far and what I have been told, being younger doesn't mean good, but I can see being younger means going miles further than someone older would be able to, the blonde Uzumaki said. Between you and Mikoto, there is an age difference. We can consider you young as you're not that old. If Mikoto were to look at you, she would say, younger. I was going to suggest you do it with me so that I can see the truth in what you say. Naruto said before turning back to his papers. Of course, such an idea would not be welcomed, and that would only lead me to one conclusion. It can't happen. The discomfort she was feeling a few moments ago disappeared within seconds for Yugao, as she now felt slightly insulted. Maybe that was a strong word to use. It felt as if that Naruto wouldn't want to do it with her, maybe because there was something wrong with her that was an insult to her pride as a woman, and especially a maddening one if it was coming from Naruto. What is that supposed to mean? Naruto glanced up for a moment after hearing the strong tone the woman used. I get the feeling you don't like my response, but that would be because of clear communication. You heard me, but you did not understand my words. I heard you. Yugao forced out the words. And I understood you clearly. If you did, then there wouldn't be a question asking what my statement is supposed to mean, unless you were being rhetorical and I missed that. Naruto responded. My response was about your relationship with my mother. I'm already sleeping with Mikoto. If I ended up in bed with you, it would not be good. Well, at least with you there would be no risk of a falling out. Yugao raised an eyebrow in curiosity. You do know that if your mother finds out about your relationship with Mikoto she will not be happy. Without even asking, I know it was Mikoto who led you up to it. I wouldn't be surprised if she just jumped on you and told you to just be a good boy and allow her to do what she wants. Your mother would have the same picture. Both of us know that you don't think of women in that way when you look at them regardless of how beautiful they are, well, unless you're plotting something. On normal cases, you don't have the kind of thoughts most men would have when seeing a woman. Naruto watched silently as Yugao reasoned. The fallout between Mikoto and his mother was a possibility, but it wasn't something that he gave himself time to think about. Yugao was indeed spot on. Mikoto did come on him, but that wasn't to say she was the only at fault. He didn't do anything to deny her. To say that he could not would be a blatant lie. He could have, but he did not, because he wanted her to do what she wanted. I'm surprised that even if you're conscious that what you're doing is wrong, you still continue with it. I never said it was wrong. Naruto responded quickly. It will not be accepted, but it isn't wrong. There are many wrong things in this rotten world of shinobi. My actions with Mikoto are not one of them. We are both adults. If she was blackmailing me, then it would be wrong. The blonde stated before changing the subject. Although I find it puzzling, I am attached to this house and it really does hold some sentimental value. If I truly had the resources, I would just buy the stands around us and build a compound here. Yugao didn't believe that was the only reason stopping him from doing something like that. If you really wanted to do that, you could think of something else. Going legal has never been your way of getting what you want. I did consider compelling these people to move elsewhere so that I can take their houses, but that would seriously raise a lot of questions and soon it would be discovered that the owners did not move out in their own free will. If I could twist their wills without the Whitey Byakugan being able to notice, I would be twisting them tonight and by tomorrow they would be moving. Yugao stared. Even though she knew those things were not above him, she was really surprised that he could still say it with a straight face. Do you consider what other people feel, Naruto? You just said that you hold this house dear, and don't you think it is the same for other people as well? Likely, but it matters little if I do not care. I don't empathize with the unknown. Well, it wouldn't be fair to do it, and I would be nothing more than a hypocrite who likes pointing the evil of other people when my hands are also be. The blonde paused to test his thoughts. There was nothing. He didn't care. My mother would be disappointed if she really confronted her thoughts about me. I should do something to ease those worries before they build up at the back of her head. Naruto wasn't stupid enough to say that his mother thought he was a saint. She knew there were parts of him that wouldn't make the world feel at ease in his presence. But she refused to entertain those fears because she believed that he could still change. She believed in her son. She didn't want to think the worst of her son. If she did that, she would kill all the hopes she has of him. That was something he didn't want. Hope was fundamental to all humans. If he destroyed his mother's, he would never forgive himself. Yugao didn't comment that he was already a hypocrite with how he handled things. What is in the agenda, now? The Akatsuki, Iwa, Kiri, Orochimaru, Karen, there are a lot of things that must be dealt with. What is a major threat as things stand is the Akatsuki. There are many things that I do not know about them and they pose a direct threat to our safety. He wasn't going to be doing anything as things stood. He would wait for them to make a move before joining the fray. If he just attacked, he would not know their plans. It wasn't just one member in the organization, there were a couple of them, and taking out one didn't mean the end of it, it was just the beginning. Maybe he wasn't in a hurry because there was the thought that he could use what they wanted with Bijuas for his own means, but of course he wouldn't go on the path of hunting down Bayu. It would certainly make him an internationally wanted criminal, and that was something that he would rather not have in this life. A record like that would create an unnecessary heat and it wouldn't work well for what he was planning. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.